All right, welcome back, folks, to our special edition of the Steve Malzberg Show, which, by the way, you could see the regularly scheduled Steve Malzberg Show tonight and every night, Monday through Friday, at 7 p.m. Eastern, and then again at 10 p.m. Joining us now, rejoining us, is former CIA analyst and senior vice president for the Center for Security Policy, Fred Fleitz. And joining us is George Reinas. He's former Air Force sniper and certified military, civilian, and SWAT sniper. Welcome, George, and thanks for sticking around, Fred. George, let me ask you,
sure.
Based on the attack, what we know of the attack, what we know of the ammunition they had on, the type of guns, the time the attack took and how many rounds were fired, etc. He had told friends, or his father had told the media, Fareed's father, that he liked to do target shooting in his backyard for fun. It relaxed him. What kind of training would he and his wife, who I think he met or came from Saudi Arabia or from Pakistan, what kind of training would they have needed to carry this out?
Well, I think that the training necessary for the type of attack they had wasn't necessarily in the shooting itself or their skill sets in the shooting, but more importantly, how they planned the attack. Having the amount of rounds that was reported and how many they fired, if it was an actual skilled shooter behind that weapon, the casualties and what has been reported would have been tremendously more intense than what was. What you need to be a really good shooter in a situation like this for those people would have to be a good trainer, and I doubt that they had that. But obviously they had the means to go ahead and push forward with what they're trying to accomplish.
And one more before I get to Fred. And what about the bomb factory that they uncovered in their home or garage or parts of both, where they had all kinds of pipe bombs and ingredients to make many, many more? Is this something that they could get from a terrorist manual that these days unfortunately is online?
Sure. I mean, there's many manuals out there. I think won't name any so people won't look them up, but the information is definitely available, and the pipe bomb is one of the most rudimentary explosives that you can make on your own. The fact that they had them in such mass quantity shows that this wasn't something that just happened. They were playing this for a long while.
And Fred, CBS News is reporting that the computer for either Saeed and or his wife showed that they were looking for and been on sites related to ISIS groups and ISIS-related material. So that's not a surprise to you, is it?
No, I think we have to see whether there was an Anwar al-Awlaki-like figure behind the scenes here, maybe running them. This is the Islamic cleric who was behind the Fort Hood shooter and behind many terrorist attacks. Given the organization of this, the sophistication, the number of weapons, I think Al-Qaeda or ISIS was involved, and there could have been someone in Saudi Arabia or in Yemen or in Syria who was running this couple, and we need to find out who that is because they may have recruited others in the United States.
George, from what you described, and you're probably right as a layman when I think about it, that if these were highly trained shooters, the carnage would have been much more immense and precise. So this just shows a layman like me and the people watching who are, not in fear for their safety, but concerned about their safety and their children's safety and their husbands' and wives' safety, that it doesn't take all that much to be able to carry something like this out.
Sure, it really doesn't. And I think that, we're going to see a lot of reporting on the type of weapons used. And that's not really the big factor here. I mean, you can think of how much more damage you could do with, say, an automobile plowing into a crowd. Or if they had, different calibered weapon systems. That's not really the argument here. I think that the big thing we should focus on is how they carried it out and the intent.
And Fred, of course, you did such great work with the Center for Security Policy and Frank Gaffney and company. What concerns you the most? I mean, if the FBI gets up later today or tomorrow and says, okay, this was obviously a terror attack influenced by, this guy had contact, we think there's more people left in a cell. I mean, did we just become Paris, or have we, in a sense, been Paris all along, but only on a smaller scale and a more successful scale of stopping them?
Well, we need to determine that. I mean, the number of weapons, the number of bombs, the fact that there were remote control devices being developed within the so-called IED factory, this is similar to what we saw for the Boston Marathon bomber. There's a lot going on here that we don't know, And I'm concerned that this might have been a plan to carry off a Paris-like terrorist attack. That really has to be looked into.
Yeah, and Fred, you know, you can't get inside the heads of these people, but you're a former CIA analyst as well, so it's a stupid question, but I asked it yesterday immediately when they caught the SUV. Why on earth? Not only why did they carry out this attack, when you're right, it looked like they had much larger plans, but why did they stay in the same getaway once they got away? Why did they stay in the same car and go to their home?
I can't answer that, and I mean, it's puzzling why they attacked this community center. They had far too many weapons to conduct such an attack. This obviously wasn't the focus. Whatever the plot was, I think they were planning something else, and for some reason they attacked this community center.
And George, very quickly, the police chief in Detroit says that armed citizens deter terrorist attacks. Sullivan County in New York, the police chief wants everybody who's licensed to carry, all civilians, to carry. Is that a good answer, a good precaution?
It's not just a good answer because that can't stop everything, but for the average everyday citizen, and myself included, being able to carry is my first line of defense. And with response times with police and responders, I'm going to have that edge if I'm armed. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. Hey, Fred, thanks for sticking around for 2 segments. George, great to talk to you, sir. We'll speak to you again, I'm sure. And up next, we have Jane Velez-Mitchell and Tom Borelli, both of whom you should be familiar with from my regular Steve Malzberg show. And believe me, they both will have a lot to say on this special coverage of the terrorist attack. Don't go away.